Hi, welcome back to another video podcast episode of your course, Major 5, Technical Writing. You're still hanging out with me, Sir G, and we're still in Chapter 1, where we discuss or we try to understand the nature of technical writing. But for this episode, we will be dealing with lesson number 3, the writing process. From the moment we learn the ABCs, we became familiar with the different words we learned from either books, people, or from the internet. We develop the skill not only of reading but also of writing. They say that when a person is good in reading, he or she can become good in writing. But how is this possible? Well, reading is an input skill, therefore, writing is its output. Now, let us review some of the things that we already know when it comes to the writing process. I'm sure that your reading and writing teacher way back in your senior high school days were able to discuss this to you. So there are three basic stages in writing process. Let's name the three. We have first pre-writing, then we have writing, and the last stage is rewriting. So let's delve ourselves into each closely. Let's start with pre-writing stage. This is the first stage in writing process. It is what the writer does before he writes the first draft. In this stage, the writer composes or um, supplies, composes or supplies information pertaining to number one, the purpose of the paper. So this is necessary to determine the content of the paper to be included, the organization, and the style of the paper. Next up, we have choice of topic. A writer has to explain or justify his or her chosen topic. And lastly, gathering information. A writer must be able to find sources for of information to enrich his or her topic. But there are some techniques that may help you get started in writing because I understand that it's the hardest part of writing, the pre writing stage, because sometimes we're clueless, right? We don't know how to start it. So I got your back, fam. I'm giving you tips or techniques. First off, keep a writer's journal by recording personal experiences, perceptions, and ideas. So whenever you think that whenever an idea pops out in your head, write it down. Be it on your notebook, like tangible things, or you could even write it on your notepad on your cell phones or your iPad, your tablets. Next is to do free writing. Write about whatever comes to your mind. It's okay. And then brainstorm by listing ideas as quickly as they occur. Like I remember J.K. Rowling when she's starting to write Harry Potter. The name Harry Potter just popped out of her head, and then she write the name on a tissue paper, on a napkin, on a train. So it's like that. And then once the idea comes in, take advantage of it, write it down. Cluster by drawing lines and circles to show connections between ideas. It is also called web mapping or making connections. Also, ask questions using the news reporter's 5 Ws like who, what, where, why, when, and how. Then read with focus. This entails reading efficiently to locate and collect specific information. Then, once you read with focus, you listen with focus. This means listening efficiently to locate and collect specific information. Then observe by noticing details around you through your senses, your five sentences plus your common sense. And lastly, imagine. Prove your imagination of ideas. Often use a quote unquote what if approach. Like, what if this idea comes first? Or what if this had happened? Or whatnot? It would really help you like to sketch or to outline your paper. Let us now proceed to the second stage of the process, which is writing stage. This stage is where we begin to write our first draft. We know that not everything that we write is perfect at the first go. Therefore, you must remember what to do and what not to do during this stage. So allow me to give you the do's and don'ts of writing your first draft. First, don't overanalyze your writing. Yeah, I know, right? I'm a guilty person of this crime, so don't be like me. Do not overanalyze your writing. Then, do feel free to follow the flow of ideas where it is leading you, even if it's not what you initially planned. Sometimes, to be spontaneous is the best thing that might happen to you as a writer. Go with the flow. Third, don't exaggerate ideas or details. You're not writing a novel, you're not writing a feature article. Number four, do work on the details as much as possible to keep the story fresh in your head or in your mind. And number five, don't worry about how good your writing is. I've attended a seminar like a few years ago in PNU, and the speaker told us, and really that this resonates in me really because I am such a guilty person when it comes to this bad habit. Because admit it or not, when we are asked to write something, like for example, when we are writing the introduction of our research paper or simply an essay, when we are writing an essay overnight, for example, what we do is that we write our ideas. So when we have like a first sentence or a paragraph, what we do is we read it, we analyze it. Number one, we're analyzing our paragraph, our sentences, and then the tendency is that we edit it right there and then. We proofread it until we're not satisfied anymore with that, and then we decide to delete it, and then we're back to square one. We do writing again, and then we analyze it again after a paragraph, then we proofread it, then we decide to delete that paragraph until we do it again and then again and again. Hanggang we came to the point that it's almost deadline and we're not yet done writing something. So the ending is that we will pass a mediocre work because we're doing it at the last minute now. So that's wrong now. What we have to do is that we write everything we know, or we write everything that might pop in our head, and then we don't read it right away. I mean, we take time, we take rest, for example, like at 3 hours, or if you have a lot of time, like maybe 2 days or 3 days before you reread your work. So when you're rested already, then you can do some proofreading, some correction in your punctuation mark, um, in your spellings, and even in your subject verb agreement and tenses, I mean parallelism, like that. So yeah, don't worry yet about how good your writing is when you are writing your first draft. And lastly, don't forget to have fun, because sometimes we really put the idea that we're writing something technical on our head, and that really like ruins the fun in the writing process. So this is your list for your do's and don'ts of your do's and don'ts in writing your first draft. Let's now proceed to the last stage of the writing process, which is rewriting stage. This stage is also known as the revision stage. We revise to ensure that number one, the content of the paper is relevant, that there is organization and coherence in the arrangement of the ideas, and lastly, we revise to ensure that the grammar and the mechanics are clearly observed. So maybe the explanation, and the do's and don'ts number 5 is the stage, rewriting stage. So there you have it, the three writing process, the three stages in writing process. We have pre-writing, writing, and then rewriting stages. And that concludes our lesson for this video podcast. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode. This has been Sir G, and I'll see you again on the next videos.